Hey guys, how's it going today? My name is Austin and I am back here today from the I-Ching and I-Ching Study Academy here based in Santa Monica, California. So just to recap a little bit of what Dr. Wu's been teaching over the past week, he's delved a little further into the I-Ching theory. So for those of you that don't know, I-Ching is a very, very ancient form of fortune telling that was developed basically from the shamanic peoples of China back, BC times, and a lot of that information was compiled into what we call the modern I-Ching. Its exact origins are still basically unknown, but that's basically where they believe that it came from. A lot of those practitioners, of course, were Taoists, etc. But back then, that type of terminology or theology hadn't explicitly evolved into what we would call it today. Even today, it's a very loose terminology in some senses. But anyhow, in dealing with the I-Ching, he's been talking about concepts of, just pure number theory. So, of course, we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, which are the odd numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, which are the even numbers. And so he was basically stating, out of those numbers, which number do they consider, the best or the biggest number? And he was talking about how 9 is the biggest number in terms of, representing not only longevity, but kind of a compilation of all the other numbers. Of course, we know that 9 kind of multiplies to become itself again. And so it has kind of special characteristics from the purely mathematical sense as well. But 9 is definitely one of the more revered numbers, within the Taoist I-Ching philosophy. But he basically said that, in terms of all the numbers, they actually revere the number 0 the most. And why do they revere 0? Is because it represents a symbol of completeness. And so this completeness, any point on the line of the 0, if you look at one point, it's kind of looking at all other points along the trail, if you will, of the number. So 0, they believe, is represents wholeness and nothingness. There's a lot of different concepts that go along with this, but in essence, they consider that the best number in terms of I-Ching theory. So he also went on to talk about how 0 is the only number that doesn't interact with all the meridians on the human body. 1 through 9, they all represent different things and they interact directly with our human body. So in that sense, you could say that 0 is kind of above above or outside the normal human realm in some sense, if that makes sense. So he also talked about the delineation. In one of my last videos, I talked about the pumpkin and eating spinach and things like that. But he also talked about the delineation between the pumpkin and the onion. The pumpkin actually represents the earth in a lot of ways, and the onion represents the heavens. Of course, when we talk about an onion, we talk about a lot of layers and a lot of depth and different meanings as you kind of go through life. And so that's kind of the symbol of heaven. But the core teaching of this week really dealt with the 5 elements. And what are the 5 elements? For those that don't know, that you can just Google a simple 5 elements chart, and I'll link one down in the description below as well. But all of the elements kind of control one another. They all have like differing properties that end up doing different things within the human body and within the world at large. So when Confucius went to go study with Lao Tzu towards the end of his life to really try and learn and grasp the depth of the I-Ching, he asked Lao Tzu, what is heaven? And so there was kind of a lot of answers that came from that, but Lao Tzu basically explained that what's between earth and heaven is the 5 elements. These are the kind of building blocks that kind of meld heaven and earth together. And so to reach this form of completeness that we deal with in the 0, you have to use the 5 elements to kind of fill in the gaps or complete the circle, if you will. So that's definitely one of the core elements of not just medical theory or TCM theory, but it's also kind of a life element too. We always need to kind of add something in to try and complete whatever we're doing. It may seem basic, but just kind of meditating on the fact of incompleteness and like how a lot of things in this world are not perfect, and it's kind of our function to try and use the spiritual forces that are available to try and make them as whole as they can be within this plane. Thank you guys so much, and check in for my next video, but I just wanted to touch on some of the basic I-Ching and 5 elements concepts we've been touching on in class. Thank you guys. Have a great day.